This is just a quick video to explain some of the mechanics at the start of Rustle the card game. So we're going to assume here that there's 4 players. So at the start, all we have to do is take our animal card deck and take the top 14 cards from your animal card deck, and the dealer just shuffles out 2 to each player face up. And the rest go in the discard pile. So you always start, even with your maximum of 6 players, you'll always start with at least 2 cards in the discard pile. And part of the reasoning for that is because some of the action cards allow you to take cards from the discard pile or return some of these cards back into the deck. Now the next thing you have to do is action cards. So each player gets dealt 4 action cards face down. So I'll just do this quickly. Okay, and so we'll just spread these out. So we'll just assume that my competitors are here. So to decide who goes first, it's really quite simple. Basically, whoever has the least amount of points goes first. As you can see, the guy to my left here, he's actually got the 2 of the highest worth cards. So he's definitely not going first. Me, on the other hand, I've got only 400 points at the start, and everyone else has more than that, so I'm actually going to go first. So in the base version of Rustle, there's 5 card levels, for want of a better description, and they range from 100 points, which is the lowest, to 500, which is the most. And we've essentially tiered or staggered the number of cards that are worth the most points. So there's only 5 or 6 cards of the highest value, maybe 10 of the next level, and so on and so on. So there's about 15 or 20 of the lowest value cards, and essentially that's meant to drive people to want to steal the ones that are worth the most, but at the same time, depending on how things are going for you, you could still potentially win with the lower value cards just by having more of them. So I have the lowest points, I'm going to go first, and so I'll just play a couple of hands quickly. So at the start of my turn, very simple, draw an animal card, play it straight away. And this is just an example deck, so that some of the illustrations are still being finalized. Draw the animal card, it goes into play straight away. Then draw an action card, and it goes into your hand. So you'll have 5 cards, and then all you have to do is either play one or discard one. So again, this comes back to your strategy, because some of these cards are particularly worthwhile during the final stages of the game. At this stage, there are no action cards that you play out of your turn, so in my particular case, I would have to wait 3 other players' turns before I'm going to get to do anything again. So part of that is about being a bit careful of who you steal from, and essentially you don't want to annoy anyone too much. But because I'm only just doing a couple of example ones, I'm going to play this card called Animal Rescue. So as you would have seen from the description, there's 3 different types of action cards. There's farmer cards, rustler cards, and predator cards. And so Animal Rescue is a farmer card, which is all about either protecting the cards that you already have, or allowing you to draw more cards or from the animal deck. So Animal Rescue lets me choose one discarded animal card at random from this pile. So we'll just do this quickly. So we'll just say it's this one, for example. And it's a pretty low value one, but that's okay. And that's the end of my turn. So then play goes to the left. So this guy over here, who's got lots of points, would go first. Draws an animal card, plays it straight away. Draws an action card. Okay, I'm going to play this one because this particular illustration has been quite popular online. Lamb Chop, one of my favourite cards. And it's quite simple, just lets me draw and play another animal card. So I will do that. Oh, and look, it's a Merino, which is the highest value card. So That guy's off to a great start so far. His turn ends. Player across from me goes animal card into play straight away. Draws an action card. And he's going to be a bit cheeky and play a predator card known as Apex. And so all predator cards are essentially focused on either shrinking the deck by discarding cards from it or by making other players discard cards from their farms. So Apex lets me remove the top card of the animal deck from the game, so into the discard pile. It's the lowest value one, not particularly good, but that's okay, because the game end is decided when the animal deck runs out. So there are cards that will also add animal cards from the discard pile back into it, so you're going to keep the game going longer. Or at the same time, there are these cards like Apex, which will shrink it, make the game go faster. So depending on the kind of game that you're trying to play, depending on your strategy, you might want to keep the game going a bit longer because you're not doing so well, or if you're doing really well, you might want to get through it a lot faster. But that also means then that some of these high value cards might end up in the discard pile, which means that some other action cards could actually let you get them faster. Now there are action cards which are particularly troublesome, particularly in a 6-player game where the number of animal cards essentially means you only end up with about 8 to 10 turns each. Again, depending on what action cards are played. So that means that you have to be really, really strategic in how you approach either shrinking the deck but stealing from other players, because you're going to have 5 turns or so in between each time you actually get to do anything. And again, this is kind of based on this idea of being on a farm and things take time. And so, at least in this base version, I didn't want to have cards that allow you to sort of play them at any time or anything like that. I just wanted to keep it fairly straightforward and simple, but also be something where you can, still mess with each other and screw up each other's plans. So I'll just do this last player, and then we'll leave it there for this video. So animal card straight into play. So as I said, there's only 5 types of animals, 5 types of animal cards in this base version. If we unlock some of our stretch goals, there will be plans for others. So at this stage, the intention is that you kind of stack them up in front of you, so you'll just have 5 lines. And the idea is that everyone can see each other's animal cards, so there's no hiding of them. But the action cards you keep to yourself, unless other action cards are played that mean you have to show your hand, which I haven't come across any yet. Okay, so I'm going to play a Rustler card, another one of my favorites. Battering Ram, quite simple. Choose a player, steal one of their animal cards. So this guy over here has 2 of the highest value card. He's clearly winning, so I'm just going to steal one of his. That comes over to my side. And that's the end of my turn. So then it comes back to me, and so again, I would draw one, play it straight away, draw an action card, and I'm just going to play one more of these just so you can get a sense of how the game might work with different cards. Okay, so there are cards that have slightly more complicated mechanics. Again, this is not just about you messing with another player, but also potentially pitting other players against each other. So I'm going to play this Rustler card called Bad Company, because Rustler's a bad company. And it says, simply, choose any 2 players, not me, and one of the following actions. They either swap all of their action cards, being the cards in their hand, or they swap 2 animal cards of your choice. So this is where you can be, again, a bit of an equalizer. So I can't choose myself, but for example, you can kind of get a sense of who might be sort of more in the lead and say, okay, I'm going to, not swap the highest value cards because I see that they've each got one of the highest value card, but I might sort of even things out a bit and swap these 2 cards from this guy to over here. And so now I've essentially made this player the leader, I think, if my maths is correct. No, not quite. But this also means that the guy who was winning 2-3 turns ago is actually now losing even to me, and I started off last. So you can see how quickly the game can change depending on what other players decide to do. And so I'll leave it there. Thanks for listening.